If you've not been scammed, you probably have not met your match. The scam calls that we're all getting, the messages, they are sort of making a space in cracks that we already have in our society.
Right.
So, if you speak to scammer that is Dalit, he has a very clear sense of the gatekeeping that has kept him from accessing ways of rising through the hierarchy. Indians have now taken scamming to a level of skill where it's almost an art form. Then I said, what are you doing? And she said, abhi bas bakre se baat kar rahi thi. They'll make you an offer that you become a paid user of the app, where you just trap men into believing that you are dating them, so that they'll keep buying these VIP packages from the app owners that are sitting in China. The police station in Jamtara tells everyone who visits that our guys scammed Amitabh Bachchan, my own sister. She'd always say, hi, my pet name.
Right.
Which I will not reveal. And I said,
no, don't say it, because that's clearly the key to scamming, Snigdha.
The feeling is one of total devastation. It's demoralizing. I think the first thing is shame. Any scam script, once you're out of it, will sound so silly. For a long time, these scam centers were finding it very hard to keep South Asians, क्योंकि उनको खाना ही पसंद नहीं आ रहा था. The elite sections of society, people at very influential levels in their career, they are falling for it. And they're falling for it because, it's the scammers know now how to victimize any one of us, irrespective of our, level of education, awareness. They know how to create that fear, and I think that's just a very scary thing.
On Scroll Adda this time, we have with us writer and journalist Snigdha Poonam. And she's written a book on a topic which is unfortunately on all of our minds nowadays: online scams. Snigdha travels to the US, India and Southeast Asia to uncover just how deep the rot is. Welcome to Scroll Adda, Snigdha.
Thank you, Shoaib. I'm really glad to be here.
It's really everywhere, right? Online scams. We all know someone who's been scammed of money or maybe even dignity.
It's something that started becoming mainstream around 10 years ago, and reached a point where as you said, I can barely think of someone who has not a direct experience of it.
So, was this always true? Is this something that we sort of waking up to? Were there always scams everywhere? Or truly the number of scams, the quantum of scams have kind of gone up? Is it a reporting error? Is it are there more scams?
Scams have always been there. I think the scams have always been there as long as money has been there, or as long as anyone has had money. But I think what has happened, especially in places like India, is the sudden sort of digital transformation. So, within months, years, we were all using these, the digital infrastructure that nobody was really prepared to handle in terms of privacy, in terms of trust and security. And so then they took off at a volume that was completely wild. And since then, I guess, we'll go into some of the reasons why they seem irreversible. But now it's at some point in the book, I say something like, it's now an experience that unites us in India as much as the languages we speak and the regions we come from, and, the sort of communities that we belong to. You meet a stranger, on a train, anywhere, in a coffee shop, and just bring up scams, and they'll tell you a story. And they'll tell you a story that's so horrifying that, having written a book, having been in this underworld for 7 years, it just blows my mind away in the worst possible sense.
When you say horrifying, give us some examples of horrifying scams that you've uncovered in your reporting for the book.
Well, at the moment, I think the most horrifying scam that, it seems to be ripping through India at a scale that seems unbeatable are the digital arrest ones. And the crazy thing is that every time you hear about someone's experience, it's different. It's scary in its own way, and it devastates the victim in ways that is just even a test of empathy.
But before we go into it, tell us, what is the digital arrest scam? What happens? How do they trick people into? It just seems such an absurd phrase even to enunciate, to say out loud. Digital arrest. How can you arrest someone digitally?
Well, these are scams when they, it began as a transnational scam. It used to be something that I first heard about it from my sources in Indian call centers. And they used to target Americans. over the phone by pretending to be law enforcement in the US. So then they weren't called digital arrest scams. This is a very Indian interpretation. They were just called these courier scams because the hook was this. They called someone in the US and they said, there's a parcel that we have intercepted. They'll be calling from drug authority or something like that. And it is addressed to you. It is named for you and it's going to your address, and it has drugs and it has cash and it has all kinds of like counterfeit stuff, like dangerous things. And then they would ask the victim, the intended victims, to just stay on the call while this was being investigated, and also primarily to transfer all of their money from savings, from everything, into
because
a so-called.
Because people were scared that they were going to get into illegality when they clearly hadn't.
Right. And the threat was that they were going to be, prosecuted. They were going to be put in jail. An officer was they were told an officer was on their way to arrest them. And the only way that they could save themselves was by cooperating with the investigation. And the cooperation included transferring every single penny that they had in a so-called government entrusted account. And so this was a very successful scam because the victim lost everything. But also the scale of horror and the torture was really high compared to all the other scams that were happening in parallel, that I was kind of reporting on in parallel. The tech support scams, or the sort of the income sort of the tax evasion scams, where they call to tell you if you've not paid His Majesty in Customs or the IRS in the US. And so this took off and became quite transnational, and now it's being adapted in so many geographies in ways that are totally native. Like in India, for example, I think this fear of government is something that we've grown up with, of being like, कोर्ट कचहरी का चक्कर, पुलिस से फोन आना, ये तो हमें वैसे भी हमारी नींद उड़ा देता है. और उसके बाद
like even Indian elites are scared of the police. Forget about everyone else. Like I mean, if you're not a part of the elite class and caste, then you're very scared of the police.
Then this is the last phone call that you want to get in your life, and you get something like this. You are completely sort of you can't think beyond. Like after you get a call, I think in my experience talking to victims, it's just like your mind stops working. You just it's like almost being working under hypnosis. They just keep doing one by one what the scammers want them to do. And the other end, our technology is now so advanced, and skills. We'll talk about skills in a little bit. Again, with respect to making these scams native and localized. Indians have now taken scamming to a level of skill where it's almost an art form. So from like someone who's a partially literate person to even like the the elite sections of society, people at very influential levels in their career, they're falling for it, and they're falling for it because it's the scammers know now how to victimize any one of us, irrespective of our level of education, awareness. They know how to create that fear, and I think that's just a very scary thing.
I mean, this to me is really almost the mind-blowing thing about a scam, that, for example, the digital arrest scams, the person knows that they haven't done anything wrong. Yeah. They will very often do what to us seems absurd. They will maybe lock themselves inside a house for days. They will transfer over lakhs and crores of money. This seems to me like an incredible confidence trick that these people are pulling off. What is happening? Are they getting trained? Is there an apparatus? Are they scamming schools in Jamtara?
Not just in Jamtara. I think I focus on Jamtara to show that this is one part of
but it's all over
rural India where this is now like a mainstay of the local economy.
This to me seems more skillful than, in a very dark way, than almost anything else I see people around me doing. It seems like a very high amount of skill is involved in this.
A very high amount of skill, a very high amount of cashing up, upgrading. Just like, in places like Jamtara, I saw men who who told me that they started training while they were in school. So you can understand the level of training that they have gone through. If they started at the age of 14, which this principal character does, and by 24 he has learned so many techniques.
So
he's
you
upgraded.
interviewed a person who was a scammer. What's his name?
Jitu.
Jitu.
Name that I give him.
Right.
But
he sort of went to so-called scamming school, if you can call it.
It's not a scam.
At 14.
Yeah,
I mean, he started his training when he was 14.
Yes, at a village school. And he goes to village school because his he says his parents were middle class, which in his conception means they could send him to school.
Right.
But then he figures out that there were older boys who were coming from areas in Jamtara that were already getting more prosperous through the scams. Because it goes back to early 2010s.
Jamtara, just to tell our viewers who are not aware or haven't watched the Netflix series, is an area in Jharkhand.
Yes.
Close to Deoghar.
Yes.
Right.
Just like I call it the rural heartland of Eastern India. And because now this area is so wide that sort of like spills out of Jharkhand into the larger sort of eastern regions. And in school his seniors would teach him methodically कि आपको number कहाँ से पता करने हैं लोगों के, how do you even like do something, like say if you were to start a scam, the first thing you would need to know is whom do I call?
Exactly, yeah.
How do you get a database? And this is like I'm still talking about several years ago when you couldn't just like go online and buy a data set from the black market. So you would have to assemble these, you might have to like bribe someone to get an Airtel or something to give you a database, etc. So, and this one by one, they keep sort of building their whole suite of skills. The most important is what they call universally social engineering. And which, talking entirely of the technique of scamming is the most interesting thing. Because like most scams depend on their ability to make us trust them, even if it's for a second, to make a connection. And it takes trial. So, you'll see like real little, kids, because they're 14 or 15, they'll be sitting by the side of a pond or in the middle of a farm, and they'll be doing this every day for hours to just like get better at it. They'll make these phone calls. They'll say, "हाँ मैं bank से बात कर रहा हूँ आप," and they probably don't know your name, so they're just like taking a guess. They're just going along. They're improvising, and they're just testing what scripts work, and then it goes on and on. From there, they have to understand a little bit of hacking. If they the whole OTP system. If you're into someone's bank account, then what do? Do you transfer the money to your bank account, or do you go onto a online shopping platform and use their credentials to buy something, and then send it to your address? So these systems are evolving every month, every few weeks. That's what they told me. And so this kind of like skill setup is so advanced, and it is catching up so fast with our awareness, with what law enforcement is doing, with the larger sort of narrative, that it just becomes very hard to beat it. And if you think of any other parallel system in which people are being skilled, like let's talk about some of these skill centers that the government runs. लोग वहाँ भी जाते हैं, पर उनको जाने के वक्त भी पता है कि इसके बाद पता नहीं जॉब मिलेगी कि नहीं मिलेगी. लेकिन अगर ये स्किलिंग सेंटर में चले गए in this informal skilling networks, job तो guaranteed है. So if you are that guy in a village in Asansol or in Pakur or Jamtara, what are you sort of look at the two options and you make your choices.
So there are, basically what you're saying is, if you're a young man in a poor region of India, which is a lot of Eastern India, there are very few opportunities for you to go ahead in life, and this unfortunately is one of the opportunities.
Is one of the opportunities that, for a number of reasons is the most visible thing. It's something that they see before they even leave school. They can see by now they have seen like a couple of generations. So it just is not something that they have to even like debate, there's no debate with themselves. It's once they've joined it, they might figure out कि उसमें रहना है कि नहीं रहना है, या फिर अपना चलाना है या नहीं चलाना है, कितने दिन रहना है. A lot of people leave and then they might go on to do a construction job. They might come back. So it's not like
It's not it's informal employment at the
It's
end of the day.
informal employment. And they might like sort of see incentives, etc.
Mm.
But it's definitely something that comes up very early on in their path to the job market.
I mean, this to me seems like, I mean, we can moralize it, but it just seems to me that it's a very bad look for India's economy, right? The fact that there are so many millions of young men and women, and the only way that they can ever think of breaking out of the poverty that their parents were in is by scamming some poor chap in Delhi or Bangalore or whatever.
It's a terrible look for the Indian economy, and when I went to these places, and after I had done the reporting and the writing, and I had some space to think, when I was making notes, it just like what seemed clearer to me in terms of what was happening is that there are two Indias colliding. If you look at it from their perspective, one is one is chasing material progress, one is bent on survival, and in that kind of collision, you see, the kind of ingenuity emerges that will take an individual over the edge of illegality. And even if they want to turn back, knowing that there is nothing if they return to where they were, and the intention inequalities of that place just like makes it almost impossible for them to turn back. And I could see that by following, my principal character's story.
It's very palatable. Like, what else do you have to do? Right?
Yes, it makes the risks palatable. It does something even more disturbing. It lowers your moral boundaries. The kind of entrenched oppression, injustice, and inequality there are, and not all together in one place, but like in different places. I chose to write about one place, but I went to several places and saw similar sort of infrastructure, scam infrastructure. It could be oppression in one place, or like really, really sort of regressive structures of caste, of community, and then they see that, and when an opportunity arises, their moral boundaries are already sort of are lowered by that. So because one thing that a lot of people want to know in India and abroad are why does someone join so easily? This is why, and I think it's like uncomfortable question for most of us uncomfortable fact for most of us to confront. But that is what it is.
But unpack this. So this is something that you brought in your book a lot, and I find it very interesting. How scams intersect with caste, right? I think you sort of bring out that even in the areas that you went to, a lot of the people who were doing these scams were from the Muslim community, OBC community, Dalit community. I think Jitu is from the Dalit community. How do these intersections take place? I think you have a very interesting kind of line where you say, in a society as brazenly unequal as ours, the ingenuity of the oppressed is directed into deception, right? Like, unpack this for us. Like, why is there a caste angle here?
Let's sort of step away from caste for a minute and look at it more generally. And the way that I came to see it after reporting the book was that the scams that we see, the scam calls that we're all getting, the messages, they are sort of making a space, or they're thriving or living in spaces and cracks that we already have in our society.
Right.
Whether those cracks were made thousands of years before we were born, or those cracks are something that we have made, through the forces of political change or just like everyday sort of prejudices and jealousy and hatred, whatever. And those cracks are now visible enough and deep enough that you don't need like a sociologist to come and tell these guys कि इसमें कुछ हो सकता है. So what that does is that if I am someone who lives in a village, I feel no sense of guilt in trying to scam someone who lives in a city, because that distance is already there. The same thing works on the axis of caste. So, if you speak to a scammer that is Dalit, he has a very clear sense of, the gatekeeping that has kept him from accessing ways of rising through the hierarchy, or
there is no normal way to rise.
There is no avenue for upward mobility.
There is no avenue. There's a cement ceiling
Yes.
So to-
There's an iron grip.
There's an iron ceiling, right? Like
Yes.
there's no way that this person from Jamtara can ever aspire to, a sort of quote unquote middle class life in a big city in India.
No. So they have a conception of their victim in each of these camps. There is a very clear conception, and I think the way that they frame the circumstances or the differences between where they are and where they're victims is sometimes sharper than you'll read in a book of Indian sociology, because that tells you a lot about how
They are aware of this injustice, which is why I think they have no compunction.
Yes.
They have no moral weight as such, because
Yes.
they know that they are on the wrong side of whatever
Yes.
moral weight that you can ever put.
Yes, because the book started with the call center scams, where the victims were almost always sitting in the West, and they would tell me कि ये लोग तो बैठे हैं अमेरिका में और
अच्छा।
ब्रिटेन कनाडा में, इनसे हमने $500 ले भी लिए तो क्या हो गया, और फिर बाकी भी चीजें colonization and globalization and stuff like that. They even like brought those things up. So many of them were graduates. They weren't like
Right.
they understood that they were victims in a
That
broader
there is
sense.
this global inequality, and this is a very small drop
Yes.
in that.
Very small drop. And then what has happened over the last 10 years is that at least one tiny section of the economy is doing well. Some of us have prospered. We call it, you call the middle class 100 million or 300 million, that's debatable. But जो भी है वो एक startup तो है. तो अब बाकी जितने लोग रह गए हैं वो स्टार्टअप को तो देख रहे हैं, और सारे स्कैम्स वो उनको पैसे उनसे ही चाहिए.
ये जो आपने कहा देख रहे हैं, I think the internet also plays a big part in this.
Yes.
Earlier, right? Earlier, say Jamtara and Delhi were hermetically sealed worlds in some ways. You had to physically travel
Yes.
from Jamtara to Delhi to see. You
Yeah.
you had to go to Defense Colony in Delhi
Yes.
to see how the elite lives. But now you can see it in Jamtara.
You can see it, and the most dazzling view I got into this was through their online shopping repertoire, because they would show me, they would tell me कि हमने क्या क्या खरीदा है. Like Jeetu told me like his whole shopping list over the years. कि वो रिमोट कंट्रोल से जो कर्टन्स होता है ये लोग लगाते हैं अपने घर में जामताड़ा में, और ये these like smart TVs and things.
Right.
तो जब वो जाते हैं ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग में तो उनको दिख जाता है कि क्या चीज़ें बिक रही हैं और कितने लोग खरीद रहे हैं उसको. पॉपुलर तो आ ही जाता है. आप if you go on Amazon, they'll show you the popular buys on Diwali and Dashera, and
Or
so
if
they
you're
want.
scrolling on Instagram or something, you constantly see beautiful things, right?
Yes.
Like beautiful clothes and,
Yes.
and furniture and shoes and clothes.
Yeah, so they want the same things, and
And there is no normal way for them to get it.
No.
It's not like they can go to
No.
school, go to college or
Yeah.
whatever. Like that's all sealed off. So the only way is
yes, and what that did in terms of actual sort of real infrastructure is that in places like Jamtara, then you had one league of scamsters, जो कि आपके what they call the cyber chores. पर उसके पूरे इर्द गिर्द एक क्रूक्स इकोनॉमी फॉर्म हो जाती है, जिसमें कि हमारे एक तो पूरा क्लास था लड़कों का who were just डिलीवरी पीपल फॉर द ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग प्लेटफॉर्म्स, कि अगर आपने चुरा लिए किसी के अकाउंट से पैसे and then you don't want it to go into your account and be caught, you will immediately sort of make an account for them using their credentials on an online shopping platform, and then you buy everything, all the stuff that Jeetu told me, curtains and really expensive salwar kameez for his wife. And then they will put an imaginary address in their village.
right.
Now, when the delivery guy gets a notification, this is supposed to go to this address, he knows where he has to deliver it.
So he's in on the scam.
He's in on the scam, but he just becomes like someone who works for a commission.
Right.
And so for each delivery like that, he'll meet Jeetu under a tree, and then he'll give him everything. And for each delivery, he'll get his 2,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees. So 50,000 का सामान आया है, तो उसमें इतना खास नहीं है इतना देना, 2,000 या 3,000 देना. And so then it creates like that's how the local economy sort of starts to rely on these scams, and which is another reason that just this Jeetu deciding that he doesn't want this life cannot be the force for him quitting. And he told me so himself. It's like, your obviously your family depends on it. Your mother starts asking कि पैसे अब तुम जा नहीं रहे हो फोन करने खेत में कैसे होगा.
अच्छा.
Your children are now going to an English medium school. So वो है, but also you're part of the wider economy. So people will keep forcing you back. And then I can go on and on, but I'll let you intervene.
No, I mean, I think one of the things that I found interesting is that in Jamtara itself, they are not seen as chores. They're not seen as thieves, right? It's seen as any work in some ways.
Yeah.
Is that how you would characterize it?
They are seen as highly skilled workers.
Right.
They are
As
seen
opposed
as,
to say like somebody who's doing agriculture and all.
yeah, agriculture hota hai, nahi to mostly people from this area go to construction work. So that has
Right.
now become
So that's a huge gulf in earnings, right? Between
yes,
doing construction work, which is probably like
300 a day
terribly
in
paid
Asansol.
and exactly and like
Yeah.
probably the world's worst living conditions, world's worst working conditions,
Yes.
to ordering, curtain or RC controlled curtains from Amazon. So there's this huge gap which so they don't see themselves as doing anything morally wrong, or they don't look at it like as thieving.
Yes, and I wanted to argue that scamming is not something that in our society we have ever thought of as, gravely morally wrong. It's just something that, sure, I mean, there is that expectation that if you're scamming, you need to be a little bit clever.
Right.
Especially if like you're sitting in Jamtara, you're scamming the wife of the Chief Minister of Delhi. Then kuch to dimag hoga is ladke mein. And so that kind of like legitimizes the work. It even gives them respect. And so it becomes kind of like, something that is legitimate. And it goes to really absurd levels. Like it's become entrenched in the local marriage market, the matchmaking, because, if you are not from a cyber family, then the girl's parents don't want to marry their daughters into your family. So अगर एक भी है तो ठीक है, पर पूरी family में एक cyber तो होना चाहिए.
So that's what they call cybers.
Yeah, they call cybers. They used to be called cyber chor, but now they've dropped the chor as a semantic sort of adjustment. So now they're just called cyber. So like sometimes I would be in these villages going around and someone would, like I had a local sort of journalist who was helping me, and he would just call out to someone saying, cyber, hello cyber. And the guy would know कि उसको address किया जा रहा है, and then he would come to talk to me.
And what you're saying this, that this cleverness is involved. There's a line in your book where you say that the status of the person being scammed is very important. Like they would, like in a way, if all else being equal, that's almost more important than the money they get out. Like what they feel, it's like it's a mark of skill that you manage to, say, scam the wife of a chief minister.
Yes.
One rumor went around that somebody scammed
Amitabh Bachchan, yes.
But that's not true.
I couldn't find any corroboration for that, but it's something that people believed in so deeply. The police station in Jamtara tells everyone who visits.
So it's almost like a mark of pride for Jamtara that we scammed Amitabh Bachchan, even if it's not true.
Yeah, that our guys scammed Amitabh Bachchan, and also like they have quote that everyone will tell you, there are, I don't know, 543 parliamentarians or something like that. And then we have scammed 300 of them or 200 of them or something.
Right.
So, again, these are things not that I would set out to fact check.
But in Jamtara, this is a quote-unquote fact that 200 MPs have been scammed.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So then what is the point of going to school?
I think on this point, a lot of India might exult. Right.
So what's the point of then going to school and earning a degree and then going to Harvard and then coming back to get a job? जब ये सब कुछ के बिना ही पैसे भी हैं आपके पास, respect भी है.
Scam होना है.
Yeah, and like at the local level, what's the highest level of influence you can have? The local MLA has opened his doors to you. You can enter anytime you like. You get the first call when he's visiting from Delhi. You are the one who is, your people are funding his campaign. And this must be like, I talk about one village, but this must be happening in so many places. And the interesting thing is that this infrastructure of corruption, we already had. The police being involved in, some very deep-seated ways कि आप पता भी है तो आपको arrest नहीं करेंगे, and then they let you know someone has complained so you can bribe them. The MLA knows and then he'll protect you. The Mukhiya will put up a bail for you, and for every bail he will charge your family 2 lakh rupees.
Right.
So then that's another thing that legitimizes their job, their work. It's because you are just a player in the the wider sort
So
of.
you're saying the local sort of political apparatus is completely in support
Yeah,
of cybers.
completely in support. If they have arrested someone and taken him to jail, it means something has gone really very bad.
Some mistake has happened in the system
What
rather
could
than
have
that
happened
actually
is
happening.
the Delhi police has shown up. So then you
Right.
have to show that you are acting. And so in that
So that means
whole,
somebody really big has got scammed.
yes,
Basically, that's what it means in reality. Like some really bada, maybe an MP really has got scammed.
yes.
Right.
And it's an MP, or sometimes a lot of these scams target people in the south. So it's not a
Right.
surprise to you that now it seems
Because
like there are
the
almost
wealth.
2 countries
Right.
in that, like the average level of income. So अब कहीं ना कहीं इसमें हैदराबाद की पुलिस आ जाएगी या फिर कर्नाटका की पुलिस आ जाएगी, and then the local police will have to show that they are acting.
So it's only when there's outside pressure that the local police will act. Otherwise, there is no internal law and order.
There is something very there's another thing that's a very local trigger. Let's say that the Hyderabad police sent you the location, phone location, कि यहाँ से आपकी call आई थी. Now at the local level, the police will start asking around in the village, because in the village, like, what is an exact location? It can be anywhere. It can,
Right.
sometimes it'll be like near a pond.
Right.
And then there are people in the village, especially again, like, this is where caste plays a role. There might be even within OBCs, there might be someone who is a little higher up the chain and who doesn't like the Dalit guy making
Right.
money, or the Brahmin. So some of the Brahmins I met were just absolutely resentful.
Right.
And they told me that they regularly sort of sent out a sheet of suspects. So a lot of this also kind of blows up because of village level rivalry.
So there is almost like
jealousy,
envy among some upper castes
castes,
that these
and
people are making money.
Yeah. तो अगर किसी के घर के बाहर बाइक पार्क हो, नई बाइक,
Right.
so that's something that they'll say, आप इसके घर पे रेड करो.
Acha.
Or if someone has really renovated their house or put up Italian marbles in the bathroom, then these things go out, because like now there are Italian marble stores in these villages.
Right.
So if someone has made a purchase, it means that they're renovating. So then the villagers themselves will put them up as suspects, and so then the police will raid that particular house. And when you raid the house, there's a high probability that you'll find something.
So it's basically outside pressure or sometimes internal caste
Yes.
or village level caste rivalries which lead to this.
Yes.
But it's not like, but even then, I guess, it's not really an organic law and order thing where a scam is being done, an FIR is being filed, and you're going to. So basically what I'm trying to say is that this sort of thing is never going to lead to an end of this industry, right?
No, because at the far end is like the MLA is sort of doing a dharna in front of the police station to say you have to stop arresting these kids without evidence, and the evidence itself is so thin because you can almost never show the money trail.
Right. So they do a good job of hiding the money trail, so it's never traced back to them.
Yes, because some of the upper caste people also have this has been going on for so many years. They'll host a bank account for you.
Right.
Yeah. So at these customer service points, so a lot of the men from upper castes have started opening customer service points just to be another sort of set of the protecting layer in the economy. So they will have bank accounts in their own names, and then
Why upper caste? So the police will rate them less.
Yeah, and customer service points is something you need references to put it up.
Right.
You need some investment to put it up. Kam se kam, I would say, 1 lakh to lag jata hai.
Right.
So that's kind of capital. This is never. You won't find it in a Dalit.
Dalits, Muslims will not have it. It will only be with upper caste in the village.
Yeah.
So in a way, although the upper caste then are not directly scamming people in these areas, but they're also part of the scam economy.
They are, and then they a lot of them open construction businesses, just selling, your sand and stones and all the sort of material.
So are there any of the reporting then, did you see any convictions for scamming in these areas?
Not convictions. People go to jail. Sometimes they spend as long as 9 months, a year, and that is scarring. Jitu in the book, he keeps telling me that He'll do anything not to go to jail again. Because once you end up in jail, then you are sleeping with 40 other men in the same little space.
Any Indian jail is horror, absolutely.
It's horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even with your family bribing the jailer, even if they smuggle you biscuits and things, you don't want to go to jail.
So this fear is always there even among cybers now.
Yes. Even for all
Was this always there, or is this something that's new happening given, over the last year, I think there's been a lot of politics against scams, right? It's really like we've all woken up to it. So is this something new that you're seeing, or was it always there?
It's always there in a sense because these are not people from criminal backgrounds. So I don't think that, even for the first generation, some people from the first generation of the scamsters in these areas to go to jail, it must have been like a total, horror to realize what happens once you get caught.
And I think maybe they never even realize that there is something to get caught, right?
Yes.
Because this really is, it's a very unusual kind of crime. Like usually when you steal from someone, you physically intimidate them and so on. This is just you're using your wits to outwit another person who you're never even going to see.
And they keep saying that they gave us money. We never forced them. And as Jitu keeps saying, before he gets arrested, he keeps saying, you can't catch me. You can't catch me. I'm not using my own phone. I'm not using my bank account. I'm not using my wallet. I'm not using my address. I'm not using the SIM card, whatever, everything is in someone else's name and you can't trace me. And once they've made a dozen calls, they will throw that phone in the the depth of a pond in Santhal Pargana. You will not find it.
Right. So when it does turn out that it's a crime and they get arrested, it's this massive shock.
Massive shock.
To them.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to come back to, we started off this conversation with and we've touched on it a bit, the unique nature of what is an online scam, right? I think like if you look at it in a larger category of say stealing of course is as old as humans are, but usually earlier stealing involved physical intimidation of some kind, right? Like a thief had to break into your house, or if you got say mugged, you were held at gunpoint or whatever, held at knife point. But here you're kind of outwitted in some ways, right? Like it's like what Jitu's saying is in a very technical sense true. Like he didn't force anyone to give the money. Those people kind of gave it for whatever reason. Obviously, it's not like it true in its entirety. But what does this do to the mentality of a person getting scammed?
It's demoralizing. I think the first thing is shame. And for a lot of people, it takes them a week to even come to terms with it, to even tell their family. And then to go to the police and try to trace the money back. I've heard from people like within my own family that never told anyone.
Right. So what are they ashamed of?
When someone could be a college professor.
Right.
Or, a retired IAS officer. They don't want to admit that they could be fooled by someone that they realize must be, calling from a impoverished village. Right. And then obviously there's also distrust of the the law and order system. So a lot of people also don't go to the police because they know that sometimes the police starts to shame them.
Right. Wow.
तो पुलिस स्टेशन जाते हैं, वहाँ पे बोलते हैं कि आप इतने बेवकूफ़ बन के आ गए, ऐसे कैसे दे दिए पैसे. So that but the feeling is like one of total devastation because you've lost money and as you said earlier, like a sense of dignity and self-belief. That they just like they can't believe that this happened to them, that they could fall for it. And in retrospect, it all starts to look so silly. Any scam script, once you're out of it, will sound so silly. But once you're in it, it just...
and I think to all of us on the outside, it sounds, as well-meaning as anyone is, always I think all the reaction to all the scams that I have heard is, how could it happen? How could you do it?
And I think that's a wrong question.
Right.
Because one of the things I asked myself and answered I didn't have an answer towards the end of it, or like until I kind of like finished the book, is that it's not that some people will fall for it and some people are not. In that sense, there are not two kinds of people. I think it's just like if you've not been scammed, you probably have not met your match. over on that side.
Right.
Because I remember I fell for something very recently, almost fell for something very recently. And so for everyone, there is a scam. Like for me, for example, I've told you how cautious I am with getting anyone to send me, no one can get me to share an OTP easily, for example. But like I got a message on WhatsApp a few months ago from my own sister. And she's saying, can you send me, I've accidentally sent you the code to something. And can you send me the code? And now we're texting each other 24/7.
Right.
And it's totally possible that instead of putting her own account, she put my account. So I copied the OTP and I was about to send it to her. And then I noticed that she never said my pet name. Like she'll always say, hi, my pet name, which I will not reveal.
I'm just going to ask you, what is your pet name, Snigdha?
And I said,
no, don't say it, because that's clearly the key to scamming Snigdha, to use her pet name.
Because she will not say hi, Snigdha, and she will not say hi. I looked at the language again. It said, hi, I have sent you something by mistake.
तो उसने घर का नाम नहीं यूज किया,
घर का नाम नहीं यूज किया.
the key.
That was the key. And how many people will, and this was like early in the morning, I had just opened my eyes. And put anyone else in that situation, not someone who has finished a 400 book. And this is so easy. And that's why I think more and more, universally, they're using family to get you. So what
had happened is it got hacked.
Yeah, her account had got hacked. It's because when someone sent that similar message to her, she fell for it. Because in her case, it was a close friend. So it'll be a close friend or a family, and the chances that you will fall are then very high. And if not for the family, then you'll fall for something else. You might fall for love, you might fall for sex, you might fall for fear, like in the digital arrest. There is something for you. And so I guess with this and many other sort of experiences and anecdotes, I had to admit that if I have not been scammed, it's probably that it's not like I'm more different or more clever or more educated. It's just that someone has not tried hard enough.
You haven't met your scammer, basically.
Yes.
Like there's one for everyone, basically. So
my scam soulmate.
Your scam soulmate. So basically, we have to go through life trying to meet our scam soulmate.
No, Shoaib. We have to make sure we never meet. It's like the anti-soulmate thing.
Right, it's an anti-soulmate. But you're saying that there's a very high chance, inevitably, that it'll happen to everyone, just given the sophistication and the scale.
Yes, and there's a third thing why it'll happen to us, and especially in a place like India, where for, most of history we've only sort of dealt with people in our caste, community, family networks. और पहले भी scams होते थे हमारे साथ. When I was growing up, my mother would keep telling me कि इसका कुछ Ponzi scheme हो गया. Someone invested money in something in the building network and someone got scammed. But we never even took that to the police or anywhere, or even talked about it, because it was happening within our communities, within our networks. And now, like I said in the beginning, this whole digital revolution happened, and now you could be dealing with anyone, anywhere. And like multiple times a day, we are transacting with people that we don't know who they are. And so there's just chances that one of them might scam you, means that you always have to be on your toes.
Like we've imported this very sophisticated online infrastructure to what is a very traditional society, and
which is not used to dealing with.
This is the explosion that's taking place.
Yes, society that is not used to dealing with strangers, but it's also society that is very used to otherizing people. And so then the mix of that is where the horror happens.
You spoke about getting scammed for love, and in some ways, I think the greatest shame or the greatest sort of the greatest, desire, like to this humiliation in some ways, is I think when people get scammed for love, because you're so vulnerable, you give yourself to another person, and then, obviously it's very risky, but that person is, he's a bot, he doesn't care about you, he only wants to scam you for money. Tell us about that. Like, you start your book off with a group of women who have basically fallen for romance scams.
Yes. So, like you said, I mean, love, sex, relationship, intimacy, it'll always be something that will make us fall for scams, because it's just such a universal need. And so the greatest variety of scams sometimes that you can see is within this universe of scams. And, one of them that I focus on are the pig butchering scams, which take which take like, they're based on love. So they begin by making a sort of cultivating a relation. The scammer will begin by cultivating a relationship with you. It all begins with a wrong number text. So you'll get a message saying, are you coming to work today or something? And then you will say, sorry, I don't. Right. Who's this? Right. And then if you're lonely and if this person seems very sweet and said, I'm so sorry that I thought you were, Rakesh, but you're not. But how's your day going or something?
That's actually a classic way to sometimes approach someone. Like you almost say you like, so see, these are all like real world, you could say flirting techniques brought into the scamming world.
Yes.
Right.
And then if you are lonely, and especially like in Western countries, and including like they also have a sense of what parts of like America where, like say far off places where older people live by themselves. So they'll target that demographic. And people are sometimes just hungry for a connection, and so they'll get into that conversation and that'll continue for months and months. And so by that end of that time, you have a very deep relationship with the stranger. And what that stranger tells you, that stranger is not when asking you for money. The stranger is saying, I want to make a life with you. And so that we might have a really luxurious, romantic life. We just go on vacations. We just sit at home and bathe in these like really fancy swimming pools. Why don't you do what I have done and invest in this like cryptocurrency platform? And that's how it begins. And then this is a scam in which you're not investing hundreds or thousands of pounds or dollars. You're investing everything. You're investing over $1 million easily.
You're not even asking for money. You're almost giving your partner a tip.
Yeah.
A tip to make money.
Tip to make money. I will guide you.
I will guide you. There's a stock tip or there's a commodity trip. Why don't you do it? And of course, that tip is fixed.
Yes. And then that is a very sort of crazy thing because it was bringing love and greed. Because like say with lottery scams, which is where I began the book.
The two great human, failings then, right?
Failings. Because with the lottery scams, it was like scammers kept telling me, वो तो आदमी लालची होता है, आपने तो यकीन किया कि आपको लॉटरी मिल गई है. But then this also brought in love into the game, and the game just becomes explosive.
Why did you call it a pig butchering scam?
The idea is, it's some
horrific phrase.
The Chinese cyber criminals came up with it.
Right.
And this is a concept that's derived from the system in China that's called pig fattening.
Right.
Where you'll fatten the pig for like a few months, feeding it the best things that you well, and then at the Chinese New Year or something like that, then you'll butcher the pig. Right. So similarly, like for the 3 months in which the scammer is trying to develop a relationship with me, and that is, you have to see some of the scam scripts. They are so romantic. They are just so well crafted, and these guys, they know exactly what are the emotional sort of
what buttons to push, basically.
Yes, and how to pace it. There's like, there's like a thing that goes from Monday to Saturday. And there are also things like don't overdo it. वो सारे instructions भी बीच-बीच में होते हैं. Don't overdo it now. Stay quiet for a few hours. So it's not even someone that's trying to, like somehow I'll just never get suspicious. It just seems like someone who's likes me, but also is not all over me. And I like talking to him. And then, and this is the scam that is drawing thousands of young Indians abroad to these scam cities in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, in Myanmar, in Cambodia, in the Golden Triangle, and beyond the Philippines now. I think Dubai and other cities in the Middle East are being set up, because this is something that, again, like once that skilling has happened, you can only keep changing centers. So sometimes even if like a young Indian person is evacuated from a center in Cambodia, sometimes they just go to the next center in the same city instead of coming back to India.
So before we go into this, because this is something I want to discuss, so basically what Snigdha is saying is that there are actually these scam compounds in Southeast Asia where a lot of your scams, including the digital era scams, if I'm not wrong, are run out of. And many of them are populated by Indians and South Asians as a whole. I think there are a lot of Pakistanis and Bangladeshis there.
Sri Lankans
Sri
as well.
Lankans also. So this is like, the newest on-site
Yeah.
opportunity. Earlier to be
On-site.
on-site, you had to be a software engineer, but now you can be a scammer and go abroad and work. So tell us, you've been to the scam compounds in Cambodia.
Yes.
Tell us about it. Like, how horrific was it? I mean, a lot of these, conditions are close to slaving.
Yeah.
Right? These people are forcefully kept. I mean, some of them go of their own free will, but you really can't leave them. Can you?
It starts with human trafficking. I wouldn't say that still today a lot of people go on their free will.
Right.
I mean, like many of these recruiting process for many of the scams, it begins with a job offer. So you're young, you're in India, you're unemployed, you're desperately looking at have signed up for all kinds of Telegram channels and Facebook groups जहाँ पे कि jobs post होते हैं. तो आपको posting दिखती है, and then or someone approaches you on these channels, and they immediately send you a job offer, and then they send you.
So you're tricked into going there.
Yeah, you're tricked into going. They send you a travel ticket.
But was it always like that, or earlier people would go voluntarily?
The people go voluntarily. It's just that once they're there, they get trapped in most literal sense. Their passports are taken away.
Right.
I mean, as soon as you land at the airport, you have like the horror begins. Like someone shows up in a totally sort of black tinted taxi, and you're not allowed any questions, and then you will be taken to the center. Sometimes it might even include being smuggled into another country from the one that you landed in, because it's like a vast Southeast Asian phenomenon now. And once you show up at your particular compound, for which the compound owner has paid your recruiter in terms of like, that's slave money. That's how they call it.
So they literally call it slave money.
Slave money, right. Yeah. And they have terms like in Chinese that they mention that this is now my, I've bought him or bought her.
Him, right.
And so if someone bought you for, let's say, 8,000 USDT or whatever it is in cryptocurrency, then it's not that you are a hostage. You're only a hostage until you can pay back the slave.
So you have to buy yourself out from there.
You have to buy yourself out. But then you start working, and then multiple things can happen. You can start to earn and then make that money, and then realize that you could make some more money if you just stick around.
Right.
Or you could reach out to your embassy and get evacuated and join another center that's paying more. Right. Or you could get evacuated and come home, and like I said, with the Jamtara system, find there is nothing else waiting. Like one of the people, Raju, he got in touch with me while he was trapped in a scam center in Myanmar. Like horrific torture, like beatings, electrocution, other kinds of like molestation. They
so
put you in,
people who weren't meeting their targets, so to speak, were
refusing to work or meeting your targets. So
Right.
they put you up in these hostel-like systems with bunk beds.
Right.
And you have to show up at whatever timing shift you've been given based on whatever country is your target.
Right.
Because now this has become like a hub for digital scams that go out to all over the world. They go out to victims all over the world, including India, US, Australia. तो सबका अपना अपना शिफ्ट होता है, और आपकी शिफ्ट मान लिए कि डिजिटल अरेस्ट वाले इंडिया में हो गई, या फिर US में आप एक बुशरिंग शिफ्ट पे हैं, and you don't make your shift, then someone comes and drags you and puts you in something they call the water jail, or electrocution, or like sometimes they extract blood from you.
Good God, they extract blood from you.
They say, I mean, this whole blood thing is something that I could not fact check, but it's all over the internet.
Right.
And so sometimes people, if they can't reach out to their embassy, or no one is listening to them, they will jump from these compounds. And many of them have died.
Right.
But yes, that's the level of torture. So yes, Raju, but he said, even faced with all this, he said that I don't know what I'll do if I go home to, I think he was from Balia in UP or another district like that. And so he asked his family to download Binance, which is a cryptocurrency platform,
Right.
so that he could send them, because he could only transfer them money in crypto.
Right.
But then the family got the hang of how to convert that back into cash. And there is always a sister to get married, and some loan that your father has to pay on the farm. And that, then...
So things are so bad in India that although these are slaving conditions, many of them would not even want to return. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and the numbers are so high now. I think the UN had a report that said that even today, hundreds of thousands of people are still trapped.
Right.
And I would say, again, I don't have numbers, but I would say like a vast majority of them today are South Asians. There are some scam compounds that mostly have South Asians, and this is such a large labor pool from South Asia that a UP person will only stay in a hostel with the UP person, wahan pe jaake, or the Tamil person, why will they stay with the UP person? Right. Sri Lankan
So
might
it's so big that there are internal Indian and South Asian divisions by language and ethnicity.
By language, by food becomes a huge thing.
Right.
Because for a long time, these scam centers were finding it very hard to keep South Asians. और सारा टाइम वो लोग फ़ोन करते रहते थे उनको एक्टिविस्ट्स वगैरह को, क्योंकि उनको खाना ही पसंद नहीं आ रहा था.
That is such an Indian.
The Hindus were not eating beef. The Muslims were saying हमें halal खाना है, and so on and so forth. And so now, what they've started doing is now they'll have a South Asian chef on campus, and that itself made so many people stay.
That is a dark and ironic twist. So basically, in these slaving camps, what do you think was the key thing was food, halal, Satvik, and so on.
Satvik, right? Because this guy who went from Tumkur and then just came back, he talked about the scamming itself. Ki karna padta tha. I was pretending to be a Russian girl whose account I had hacked into on Instagram, and I was trying to target these men in Australia, etc. Right. I knew exactly what he was doing. I was 25 years old. I was impersonating someone who was hot and things. But if you ask him why he came out, why he asked to be evacuated, it's for him mostly it was food. कि वो Chinese cabbage खिलाते थे, वो मैं कितने दिन खाता.
Right. So देसी खाना नहीं मिल रहा था.
Because he came out some years ago. So he was like amongst the first sort of batch of evacuees. Right. After that, when I went back, they'd already installed South Asian chefs.
I want to go back to you've actually worked in a romance call center. So tell us how it was. Like you spoke about the caste angle, where a lot of people did not have any moral compunctions because they thought that they were anyway, they had got the short end of the stick. Mm-hmm. Is there something like that for the women working there also? Do they have any compunctions for scamming men, or again, because of these hierarchies, they think it's fine? They think what they're doing is a drop in the ocean.
Well, for the women, it's just the hurdles to the job market, the formal, official, legit job markets are just so, just that many, even more. It's harder for them in that sense to break into the economy. And so, again, like going back to the idea of cracks that I spoke about, their moral sort of guard is already down. And this was a very interesting scam because these are dating apps. Right. And I tried.
So what is the scam?
So I tried in fact from a point of total curiosity. You join the app as a man or a woman. If you're a man, it looks very straightforward. You are shown like a whole sort of...
what is the name of this app?
L'Amour,
right.
But like several, there are dozens and dozens of apps like this. And then you're shown this like cascade of photos, and then you left, right, karna hai. You start, someone likes you back, then you start messaging. And then you can get on a video call with someone. Right. But if you join as a woman, which I did, then it's like a very Kafkaesque thing going on there. There are no men. Right. And instead someone from the app will reach out to you. Right. And say that through a digital agency that's somewhere in Gurgaon or Noida or something like that. And then they'll make you an offer that you become a paid user of the app. Right. Where you just like trap men into believing that you are dating them. Right. So that they'll keep buying these VIP packages from the app owners that are sitting in China.
Right. Oh, so this is a Chinese app.
This is a Chinese app. And the system worked for them very well for a number of years.
Even here India couldn't make its own app. Right. So this is but it's the people are being hired in India.
The women are being hired in India. The men who are being scammed are very consciously, like the app very consciously has targeted men who would otherwise have no chance in the dating market. So the when I spoke to the person who had launched this app, he said that
So again, you're weaponizing loneliness.
Loneliness amongst a certain class of men. So he said that in India, you don't have apps that actually actually service men from tier 2, tier 4, tier 5 even, he said. So I've made an app for them. And for them, it's
because the mainstream dating apps that we think of, all your Hinge and so on, actually really tiny in India.
Yes.
As a percentage. It's a very tiny, hyper elite part of society that's on Hinge, and what's the other one? Bumble. Right.
And what these men told me when I interviewed them, the men who were users of the app, is that it began with them searching for apps where they could chat with women, because chatting with women is all they're looking for. Or, whether chatting on text or chatting on video, because they don't even hope to meet someone in person or buy a coffee or a cappuccino or anything like that. And so the women are just expected to hold their attention, get on a few calls and keep asking them, because once you've been on a call, like once this guy had been on a call with me, he needed to put in another 600 to get another few minutes with me. And so I knew I was scamming them on the behalf of someone that I didn't know. But as long as I was getting paid, and for some of these women, they would tell me that, this is their first job and it's paying well. It's and the thing, one of them said something like, my recruiter, my boss at this call center said,
this was in Gurgaon.
This was in Gurgaon. And when I was a little timid, actually, not pretending, sure, I can go along, I can make an account, I can put up fake photos, baat bhi kar lungi, but what if going on a video call with some stranger seemed intimidating? What if it goes out of hand? And she said, you've been out as a woman on the streets. We have faced harassment, and this is something that we can use to play a prank on them. One time I walked into the office and I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Abhi bas bakre se baat kar rahi thi." I was talking to a target. So that's how they saw the men. And the scary thing was how easily the women could be recruited into this, because that structure of inequality was already there, oppression was already there, and it didn't take them long to decide that they would be up for it.
To flip that, it almost seemed,
as if it was waiting for them.
It was waiting for them, just the way the caste thing worked.
Yeah.
After so long on working on this, Snigdha, have you become hyper paranoid about scams, or it's you think you're better equipped to take on the scam world?
Neither. I'm neither paranoid nor wanting to take on, because I think what it left me with for myself is just an understanding that we're not talking about bad guys and good guys. We are just talking about a culture, and we're all actors. We're all complicit. So, and I guess with the kind of exploitation, even in the formal economy that we see of people at the entry level, I wouldn't be surprised if someone who is a Zomato worker today might just decide that he wants to go back to his village and start a scam or something, because it's just, so, to stress the point that it's not a scammer that we're talking about. We're talking about just an ordinary person who just finds that the incentives are too skewed.
I mean, the circumstances, the society we live in is such that normal people will do this, quote unquote.
Yeah. So it just, all I wanted to see was what happens when fraud becomes a way of life. And I think it already is. And it's changing us. And, where it goes is, I don't know.
Fraud is a way of life. That is India today. Thank you so much, Snigdha, for joining us on Scroll Adda. Thank you for watching this episode of Scroll Adda. Remember, if you like the journalism that we do, become a member. Go to Scroll.in/contribute. This is Shoaib Daniyal. Thank you.